Charley Hull has one of the best looking swings on tour and is undoubtedly one of the better ball strikers. In this video I'm going to break her swing down to see what we can learn and what you might be able to copy to help your game. Before we get into the video, if you could just hit that subscribe button. I release new videos like this every week to help you improve your games, so hopefully you find them interesting and useful. Right, let's get into it. Everything about Charley's address position is absolutely textbook. So she's got the V's of her hands pointing up towards her left shoulder. Between the chin and the shoulder is something that we generally suggest to people. Ball position is pretty much off left ear, which is great. She does stand quite close to the ball. You may have read in some books where you want your hands to be underneath your chin, and her hands are well inside that. But that's, I think, because she stands with a lot of tension in her legs. She's got quite a lot of knee set and quite a lot of hip hinge compared to other players that we see. And the result of that is that she then stands to the ball with her arms quite close to her body and closer than other golfers. But apart from that, everything looks great. Charley likes to play with a draw, so you can see that compared to the flag, she's aiming out to the right of that, but that's her stock shape and that's what she's going to go for. The first thing to note about Charley's technique is her trigger. So before she takes the club away, she has this push down with her hands, which puts her wrists into a hinged position, which then gets the club working up. So you can sort of see that by the time we get to sort of shaft parallel to the ground, which is somewhere in between these two frames, her hands haven't got past her right foot yet, which means that the wrists are hinging quite early. Someone with a really wide swing, their hands would be somewhere a bit more out here before the club gets to first parallel. And this just says to me that she's setting the club up. She's going to get the club in balance on the way back. And this all happens because of her trigger. So you can see here, if I just draw a line on the top of the grip, you're going to see her hands move down quite significantly in this first move. And then they stay low for quite a long time. Hands stay under that red line for quite a few frames here, which then gives the club head a chance to work upwards. So by the time her hands actually start moving up from where they started, the club head is already above her hands, which means she's picking the club up quite steep here. She's got a lot of early hinge. That isn't a bad thing. I actually think it's quite a good thing because it gets the shaft setting steeper earlier. So shaft pointing inside ball line there. A lot of golfers who take the club away on the inside will lift the handle up early, and the club head will stay very low early, which will then result on the club being somewhere in here where Charley is already hinged up. You can sort of see already that she has some sort of bend to the back of her right wrist. This is great. She's setting the wrist early. I like that the club face in this sort of early backswing position is slightly shut because she, as a drawer of the ball, we need the face shut to the path, so getting that sort of preset early with the right wrist and the club face is brilliant. As we go further on into the swing, it's worth drawing a line on her right hip, just so that you can see how she's pivoting. Her right hip moves backwards, and she doesn't have a massive pressure shift into her right leg. She's certainly got no lateral to any part of her swing. She's not moving back at all. Her hip is actually moving back, and her head is almost moving towards the target. And that gets us into a very centered, very stacked on top backswing position, which is why she's such a good ball striker. So you can sort of see here that she's got this amazing curve here to her lower back. She's very on top of the ball. Her sort of head, shoulder, and sort of midline are very centered in the middle of her feet, which is brilliant. She's in a very, very good position here to be able to shift forwards and just really crunch the ball. Interestingly, from down the line, Charley has one of the smallest amounts of hip turn in the backswing of anyone we see on tour. She really has a braced right leg, which does have a knock-on effect to her swing later on in the downswing. But you can sort of see that her right leg doesn't really do anything in this way back, apart from restrict. Her right leg really hasn't moved to the top. This is not very common anymore amongst tour players. As golfers have sort of worked for more speed and more distance, people are allowing their hips to turn more, they're allowing their right leg to straighten, where Charley doesn't do that at all. She really winds into that right hip, she creates a lot of tension, at the top, which is why she ends up in a position where she actually doesn't have a very big turn. See from the face on, her shoulder turn, it definitely isn't past 90 degrees, and that's just because she doesn't let her right leg move back. Now, would she hit it a bit further if she did let her hips turn a bit more? Probably, but tough to say that it wouldn't then have a knock-on effect of something else. I'm sure she's doing that for a reason. It'll be something she's always done, and it's what turning against a firm right side might just allow her to stay more centered, which then allows her to strike the ball better. So that's where we are.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the engagement, helps YouTube push this video to more people. It'll help me grow. It costs nothing to you, so if you could do that, that'd be great.
The top of the swing, interestingly, Charley has a slightly cupped left wrist, which opens the face a little bit. And she transitions by really lagging the club. Now, we definitely have moved more into a cup left wrist position here as she transitions. You can see that that left wrist isn't flat. Most tour players generally have their wrist sort of almost bowed in this position, but Charley has definitely opened it up. You can really see now the club face is almost leaning back through these frames. She's really turning her body towards the target now. You can see how she's using her right leg. It's an interesting frame because you can see how much she's using her calf muscles to put pressure into the ground to create that pivot, which is turning her hips. Now, interestingly, with Charley, as she swings into the ball, her hips are going to stop moving and she's really going to throw her arms at it. So because she hasn't turned very much on the way back, certainly with her hips, she only has so far she can go on the way down, which means she does have this stall out in her hips, which then allows her to throw her hands through. You can see here that although she has this crazy lag position here, that's sort of halfway down, she actually works into a position that I would call casted here, where she's really, really releasing those angles quite significantly. She's really throwing that right arm and right wrist through these frames just because she's run out of hip turn, so she needs something else to propel the club. Hips have stopped, hands have thrown, and actually in this frame, the club has already passed her hands, which is really early. We don't see that a right lot in tour players. It's quite an interesting move. But this is where her speed comes from. She has incredible hand speed, not necessarily incredible body speed, because you can see through all these frames, hips aren't really doing anything here. This is all hands and arms. So you can see how she goes from an incredibly bent right arm position here, where the club is loaded, to 3-4 frames later, massively extended right arm, massively extended right wrist, and just look at how much the club face has turned over in such a short space of time. This is one for those people who are always saying they want to reduce the club face rotation, they want to hold the face squarer for longer, whatever the hell that means. Charley Hull is throwing the club head and turning that club head over as much as she possibly can. The club face comes through shut on the way through. She's really thrown everything. She's extended the right arm, she's extended the right wrist, she's rolling the wrist to turn the face over. That gives her some face closing and some draw. And you can quickly see how on the face on, we've got right hand wrapping over left, arms both locked straight, which is amazing. And as she swings through, she then finds herself in that balanced recoil position that she's so famous for. This is a wonderful swing, and we can sort of boil it down to a few simple points. Things that I think would be worth copying for amateur golfers is this low handle early hinge to get that club setting up instead of getting so far behind them. It's very rare to see tour players with the club head behind the hands. I know it does happen, but it's rare. And we saw this a lot in Nelly Corda's swing, how quickly she picks the club head up and how low she gets the top of her grip. So the more amateur golfers could do that, the better. The second thing is how centered she turns at the top. hips have moved almost to a left side, head has moved towards the target, and that gets her into a very centered, good ball striking position. The next thing would be, you've got to throw the club with your trail, hand and wrist as fast as you can if you want to A, hit a draw, and B, hit it high and hit it far. Don't be afraid of using that right arm for throwing and releasing the club. But just remember, the club head has to travel down from behind you in order for that to work. If you've got a steep shaft and the club head's over the top and you've got to throw, then all you're doing is casting, and that isn't going to work for you. So remember that we want to use the right arm for power, because that's a massive power source, but the club has to travel down from behind you, not in front of you, and that makes this whole thing work. So this is a wonderful swing. I really like the way it looks. I love watching Charley play because she rips it and she goes for broke. It's very admirable. Plenty of stuff in here that you guys can learn from. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. If you've not seen any of my other swing analysis, please check that out. And if you could please like and subscribe, that would be great.
Thanks very much for watching the videos. If you can please like and comment to boost the engagement, and subscribe if you don't already, that'd be great. If you like what I put out in these videos, you like what I say about technique, I can actually help you with your game no matter where you are in the world. So if you just want to click the link in the bio, it'll take you to Skillist, which is an online coaching platform, and there you can look to see what I do, and actually I can help you with your game. So analyze your swing, give you some drills and tips to help you improve, so we can work together to help you lower your handicap.